Old School Bodybuilding Clothing Company. If leg day was yesterday and now you're wondering why toilets are so damn low, you are definitely old school. If you're the only athlete at your gym that knows there's a contest today and it's to see who trains the hardest, you are old school. OSBBC.com for the hardest training athletes.
I'm Dave Palumbo, founder of Species Nutrition. From my earliest bodybuilding days, I believed in only putting the best in my body, and that lives on in the Species Nutrition line of products. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
After working hard at the gym, you need a mattress that works as hard as you do. Spinaline has engineered the perfect mattress for you and your active lifestyle. Don't compromise your recovery with inferior sleep. Order your Spinaline mattress today.
Hey guys, we're super excited to be here at the LA Fit Expo. It's our third year in a row. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be launching a tasty pastry. It's a low-carb Pop-Tart. It's got 3 to 4 grams of net carbs. And we love this show. This is our best place to be in LA.
Hey, this is the Game Triple H from the WWE. You're watching RxMuscle.com, the truth in bodybuilding.
RX Television, RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. All your questions, diet, training, supplementation, IFBB pros, news, life, whatever's on your mind, it is all on the table. As we now bring in Dave Palumbo. Mention IFBB news. This past weekend, we had the Indy Pro big winner, Justin Rodriguez. And then upcoming weekend, the New York Pro, one of the most awaited shows of the year. And for good reason, a much ballyhooed, hyped rivalry between Nick Walker blessing Awadibu. Awadibu finishing third in his pro debut this past weekend in Indy. And Dave, we see it all go down, but Justin Rodriguez coming off his big win figures to be, in a sense, maybe the quiet favorite heading into this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, I would have to believe that Justin, and I've said this on, Lee Priest and I did a little preview of the New York Pro on Iron Rage, and, you know, we both pretty much agree that Justin's the favorite. I mean, he won. He beat he beat Blessing already. He beat a very, very good, and no one's talking about him, but he's in New York Pro too, Muhammad El-Imam. This guy was very close to Justin. I think those two might go 1-2 again. Now, you got the wild card of Nick Walker. We haven't seen him in the lineup. You know, I think Justin is better structurally, and I think even Muhammad is better structurally than Nick. Nick, however, packs an enormous amount of muscle on his body. So it'll be interesting to see how he stacks up. Obviously, you know, the rivalry is Blessing versus Nick, but you know what? I mean, Justin's already beat Blessing. He's not going to beat him. You know, Blessing's not doing anything monumental in 1 week that's going to push him past Justin unless Justin comes in out of shape or something like that, or holding water. Even still, Blessing still would have to beat Muhammad El-Imam, which he's not going to do either. So really, I mean, maybe more of the hype is who will win, Blessing or Nick Walker, but I think Nick is thinking big because he obviously skipped Indy and he's going for New York. He's looking for a win in New York, and a lot of careers have been launched on the New York Pro. We've seen guys like Levrone win his first, New York Pro for his debut, Mike Francois. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, and guys have gone on to have great careers. So Nick Walker's looking for that win in New York. Will his size eclipse Justin's structure? Obviously, they'll both be probably in terrific shape. I've never seen Nick Walker really out of shape. So it adds a level of excitement because we love the mass monsters, and that's what makes Nick Walker an exciting, choice. But historically speaking, the shape guys who come in with good conditioning and great structure usually, win these type of shows. Aside from, even Nasser El-Sabadi didn't win the first couple times. Even Dorian didn't win the Night of Champions, which was the New York Pro, his first time out. So, as a mass monster, you have to come in and be perfect. So, will Nick Walker be perfect? I hope he is, because, he's an exciting young guy.
Well, you mentioned previous champions, of course, Big Ramy in 2013, 2014. Fellow Egyptian Hassan Mustafa also won. That many people are looking forward to and will figure to be in the mix.
I think Hassan Mustafa's issue is going to be that when he's alone, he looks amazing, and he's an absolute freakazoid. I mean, we know Chris Cicino works with him. The guy is, got conditioning. He's got size. His legs are ridiculous. Got great arms and pecs and shoulders and back. However, for some reason, in a lineup, he looks a little small. And I don't know if he's a little narrow or what, so that's going to be something he has to overcome. He's going to be standing against giants like, Nick Walker. He's going to be standing against a guy like Justin Rodriguez, who's not that big, but he's very wide, and he's got a good V taper. So I think Hassan's going to have his work cut out for him at the show.
So again, a lot of excitement this upcoming weekend with the New York Pro. Let's get into questions. The first two questions, of course, from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. The first question, and I know it was the one near and dear to your heart, Dave, metrics. In its heyday, what made metrics so special?
Yeah, and these questions are from the, what happens is I have an app called the Dave Palumbo Experience app for those of you who are new to the show. And it's $29 a month. You subscribe to it. You have access to all my videos, all the writings I've ever done. I do an exclusive Q&A on there every week, a video Q&A that only the people on the app are privy to. And I also answer everyone's questions. So if you're an app member, you can ask me a question, and I answer them in a public forum on the app so that everyone sees all the questions and all the answers, which is kind of cool. So these are two questions that were submitted on there. We preview them on here a little bit so that people know if you're looking for a resource, something that you can have at your fingertips on your phone. So you're sitting on the toilet, you can listen to some extra content and educate yourself. This is a great app for you guys. Metrics was amazing, and I'll tell you, when I was working out back in the early '90s and competing, I was using a lot of different protein powders. A lot of them bothered my stomach because of lactose, but I didn't. I was using them as a protein supplement. Metrics was really one of the first products. I think Champion Nutrition's Metabolol might have been the first, but Metrics was really the first that was popularized as a meal replacement shake. So not just as a mass gainer with tons of sugar in there, or not just as a protein supplement. It was actually a scientifically formulated meal replacement shake that Dr. Scott Connolly, who put the product formulation together, this picked all the proteins that kind of synergized each other, okay, acted as positive nutrient partitioning agents, and then he put it into obviously something that tasted good, which was important, and he put a vitamin and mineral mix in there. So it was like a complete meal, really, in essence. And it worked, and it didn't bother people's stomach, and it was one of the first, and it was very expensive when it first came out. It was like $3.50 a serving, and it would come in these two tubs. You had to mix 2 scoops from each of them together. It was like $76. And it was like 12 servings or something like that. And Bill Phillips was his partner in it. He did the selling of the stuff. And he's like, look, it's only $3.50 a shake. If you had to go out and buy a chicken breast, it would be more. They rationalized the whole thing. But it was convenient, and it was easy to get down. So I wasn't using it instead of food. I was using it in addition to food, really. And it was really because the protein sources were really good, easy to assimilate. Back then they didn't have whey isolates, but he didn't put a ton of whey protein in there. So even though he was using a concentrate, it was only a small amount. It was egg protein, it was casein, and it was, whey isolate, or excuse me, whey concentrate in a blend. And it worked. Look, I don't know why it worked so well, but it worked. And maybe it was because the stuff we had before that was crap. So finally we had a good quality, shake. And it was something, like I said, it was palatable. It was really good if you were dieting, because it did have some thickness, the shake, and it would fill people up. I remember my friend of mine used to mix it with ice into a big blender, and he would drink this thing. And he would drink literally, because Connolly had this whole thing, if you drink 3 of these a day and have 2 meals, you'll lose weight. And people were losing weight, doing that kind of a diet. It was once again, because it was really the first meal replacement shake.
Second question, again, from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. You've gotten questions before about Rich Piana's feeder workouts, but this question is specifically, I guess, before bed each night. So doing Rich Piana's feeder workouts before bed each night.
Rich Piana's feeder workout was what he believed, if you had a weak body part, if you trained it every day, a couple sets, that it would help build that muscle. I don't buy into that. I'll tell you why. Because I find that a lot of times weak body parts are weak because they just don't recover well. So overtraining them actually makes the situation worse. Now, some people have weak body parts because they don't know how to train properly. Okay, and sometimes in those instances, a feeder workout actually helps, because it helps with the mind-muscle connection, or building some kind of a connection to that. And because it's only 2 sets, you're really not focused on 20 sets and just kind of blowing through the workout. You might actually mentally focus more on the thing. So in that sense, it works. But doing extra training to try to make a body part that's weak better is the worst thing you can do. So assuming you know how to train and you can contract the muscle, if you have weak legs, don't train your legs every day. Go and do it once a week, but make that workout count. Full range of motion, really feel the muscle, squeeze that muscle, put 100% intensity into it. Force reps if you have to with a training partner. Drop sets if you have to, but once a week, and that's it. Once again, for people who don't have that mind-muscle connection, or who don't do full range of motion, or who don't train properly, it doesn't matter what workout you do. You're not going to grow a weak body part. You have to learn to train the muscle properly, but once you do, less is better on a weak body part, I find.
Let's go to our Instagram question. Again, if you're not already following us on Instagram, our handle is official_RxMuscle. If you're watching us for the first time here on YouTube, hit the subscribe button below, hit the notification bell. You're not going to miss any of our shows, segments, or updates. Of course, with the New York Pro upcoming, so Dave surely will have his recap of prejudging, and then, of course, once finals conclude.
Is there a live stream for this thing?
There is, okay. Yeah.
Where is it?
I can look it up. I'll have that for you.
Right, I'll have Tyler pull it up.
Yeah.
Look for the live stream, Tyler, for the New York Pro, so we can tell the fans.
But nonetheless, again, if you haven't already subscribed, do so below. If you like what you're watching, hit the like button. Comment below, obviously, that helps. And as always, we appreciate your support. Let's go first to Ethan B. Martin. Tips for peaking naturally: sodium manipulation, water manipulation.
I find that when you train hard and you sweat a lot, you need a lot of sodium in your diet. I also find that when you restrict sodium for too long, you become super sodium sensitive. Meaning that if you reduce sodium in your diet for long periods of time, your body raises a hormone known as aldosterone. Aldosterone's job is to reabsorb sodium and water. If you have a lack of sodium in your body's going to think it doesn't have enough aldosterone, which is going to raise it up really high. Now when you try to actually lose water and sodium, it's very difficult because you have too much aldosterone around. If you're constantly eating salt on a regular basis, which is what your body needs, it'll keep you hydrated properly, it'll keep your electrolytes balanced so you don't cramp when you're training, and it'll keep your aldosterone suppressed. Sodium suppresses aldosterone because you don't need aldosterone if you have enough sodium, right? Now, at the end of, when you're trying to dry out, if you remove the sodium that last day, okay, your body just pees water right out because there's nothing to hold it. There's no aldosterone present, and it takes a couple of days before your body catches up and starts raising aldosterone levels. So you can lose water really rapidly, even without a diuretic. Now, if you throw like a diazide on top of that, which forces your kidneys to dump more sodium and water, it's even better. So that's why I never restrict sodium. only the last day. And sometimes I don't even restrict it the last day. On people that are really dry and hard, I find sometimes it flattens them out too much. They don't even need that much. I keep the sodium going, and I even increase it the last day. And I might just, like I say, give them a little bit of a diazide or half a diazide here or there just to flush the little extra out. But not everyone needs it. You got to. It's a person by person type of thing. It's definitely a huge mistake to restrict sodium for long periods of time. However, that's the dumbest thing of all time. That was big back in the 80s and 90s. Guys would eat no sodium diets, no salt, zero. I know bodybuilders that wouldn't put a grain of salt on their food whatsoever. I wanted to make another statement, Sid, also about about subscribing into the channel and to Instagram and stuff like that. Some sites and some, it's more in the reptile world. I see it. They have Patreon. Patreon's like a place where you can donate money to the people who are doing good content to help support them.
It's like PG version of OnlyFans.
Right. I don't need anyone's money. Okay, for Patreon. We don't do that. I'm not looking for any money. But if you support the channel, if you like the content you're watching, the best thing you can do is hit that like button and subscribe and show us the love so that at least we know that you are there for us. You're supporting with the content we're doing. And I'm a complete, sometimes, I can be an egomaniac. The more people who watch the stuff and subscribe, I want to do more stuff for you because I want to give more content because I feel like I owe the community more. So that's your way of getting more out of me, is to make sure you subscribe, especially if you watch it on a regular basis. Just click the button, follow us on Instagram, and believe me, you'll get your money's worth out of us, which is no money because it's not costing anything.
Let's go to, love the name, Booby Bombi Trap Lord. Beginner dose of IGF-1, not LR3 or D. Take it on off days or just post-workout, intramuscular or subq.
Real quick, IFBB.com.
IFBBpro.com has the link. What happens when you click on that live stream link though? Where does it go?
Probably to buy it, but it gives you information right here.
Okay. Let's click on it. I think it's at bevfrancis.com. It looks like it's going to. Is that where it's going?
Yep.
All right. I see bevfrancis.com, I think. Live stream. Yep.
You can go to BevFrancis.
Okay, so bevfrancis.com. That's Steve Weinberg and Bev's website. You can sign up there for the live stream. Okay, cool. Very good. Now, what was the question again?
It's about a beginner dose of IGF-1, not LR3.
Oh. I like to do
on off days or just post-workout and intramuscular subq.
Okay, yeah. I like to do it. See, I find that IGF-1 receptors, which is how the body responds to IGF, because just schematically, when you break down muscle tissue, your body produces IGF-1 receptors almost as like a beacon to tell the body, send IGF here, we need repair, so they, IGF-1 receptors are the greatest after you train, so that's why you want to take your IGF-1 shots post-workout. However, for some reason, as IGF levels exogenously increase, because you're giving your body more than it really naturally produces, your body shuts down IGF-1 receptors after a while. So I always tell people, my protocol that I developed years ago was 4 weeks on, 2 weeks off, 4 weeks on, 2 weeks, like that. So you're giving your body a 2-week break in between every 4 weeks that you're on it. I like to use it every day. So even if you're not working out, still take the IGF-1. Because you're only doing it 4 weeks on, then you're going to take 2 weeks completely off of it. Some people want to take it only on the days they train. That's fine. It doesn't, I just always did it daily. Because I always looked at it this way. Even though you're not working out on a specific day, maybe 1 or 2 days a week, you're still repairing muscle. So those receptors, the IGF-1 receptors are still there, in high density and high amounts. So taking your IGF-1 shot, which I tell people just take it when you normally would take it. Let's say you work out at 2 in the afternoon. And so you normally take your IGF-1 shot 3:30 or something like that. And when you're done with training, take it at 3:30 on the days that you're off, if you want. Or you can just take it in the morning with your GH shot if you really want. Or if you're not taking GH, you can take it in the morning. It doesn't matter because it's still going to get to those IGF-1 receptors that your body still has going on. But make sure you definitely take 2 weeks off after every 4 weeks that you take it, because otherwise it just stops working very quickly. And if you do, this is my experience, if you do too much of it, it doesn't work either. It stops working in a couple days. So I know guys that do 50, 100 micrograms a day of long R3 IGF-1, and it stops working really fast. So I always recommend don't do more than 10 to 20 micrograms per day. It sounds low because everyone recommends these super high amounts. Trust me though, I've done the stuff. It's not like I don't know what I'm talking about. It stops working really fast. You'll get a really good pump from it in the first week or so, and then it doesn't do anything. The problem is that when people take a lot of it, they get, IGF-1, it means insulin-like growth factor, so it has an insulin-like effect. So if you take a big shot of it, 100 micrograms, post-workout, and then you eat, you get a good pump from it because you're always going to get that insulin-like effect because IGF-1 can bind to insulin receptors and act like insulin. That's not how it causes muscle growth, though. It causes muscle growth by binding to IGF-1 receptors. So just because it has that crossover effect, don't confuse the effects. Just because you're getting a drop in blood sugar doesn't mean that it's actually building muscle anymore. So don't overtake it. You can do it intramuscular. You can do it subcutaneously. I found that the long R3 IGF-1, which is the one I always used, which is the best one, leaves a little bit of an irritation wherever you inject it subcutaneously, like it burns. So I found that intramuscularly, it didn't do that. So I always, with an insulin pen, just popped it in my shoulder, and that seemed to work fine.
Let's go to Johnny Law Muscle. Insulin and GH in the same syringe?
No. I wouldn't do that. I would keep them in separate syringes. Insulin pens are so small, and the shot is so, it doesn't even hurt. It's not even worth, putting them in a separate, and trying to like save time by putting them in the same syringe. And the reason I say that is because they're in different buffers. Now, I don't know if it really matters, one way or another, but I just never did them together. Plus, I do my GH intramuscularly. And insulin should always be done subcutaneously because it'll hit you too fast otherwise. So I don't recommend mixing them in the same syringe. You could take them at the same time, do one and then do the other, but I wouldn't put them together and inject them.
Let's go to Alex, Andrew, and Coach. If you diet on high protein, medium, highish carbs and medium low fats enough for your needs, you still lose weight. Can you do like a high fats and protein cheat meal, like half a pound of peanut butter with a shake or something like that? Will that be beneficial if you have enough carbs in your system?
The reason I like a cheat meal is because, I don't diet guys on super high carbs unless they have a ridiculous metabolism. Most people, 99% of the people out there who diet don't diet on high carbs. They may not go no carbs, but they have moderate, to low carb diets. That's standard. I mean, that's pretty much what everyone does. So the cheat meal is really designed not to boost calories necessarily. It's designed to boost carbs, so you get an insulin spike, because that insulin spike stimulates your metabolic rate. And one of the ways it stimulates it is by making sure that T4, the inactive thyroid hormone, converts to T3. Because after long periods of low carb dieting, because insulin levels are very, very low, that T4 to T3 conversion can slow down. Now, if you're taking GH causes more T4 to convert to T3, so sometimes that's not an issue with GH, but I see a spike in people's metabolisms when I give them a higher carb day once a week or so. Even if I don't do, some people eat too much on the cheat meal, so I can't give them, I have to take it away from them, but I'll give them clean carbs, and I'll give them a spiking amount of clean carbs, sometimes, 150, 200, grams for, someone who's eating almost no carbs. That's a lot, for a person for a person who is eating moderate amounts already, I might give them 350 grams, and their metabolism spikes. They may gain a little weight the next day from water, but 2 days later, they're way down. So I like a cheat meal that it's, not just carbs and junk food, but is got a higher carb content than what they're eating. Also, I find that instead of eating such clean source of protein, have a little bit of a junky, whether it be a burger or maybe like, a fried chicken breast or something like that, like a chicken cutlet or something like that, or I was a big sushi guy, and the sushi, people don't realize sushi rice is not the white rice you're making, for your diet meals. There's sugar in sushi rice. They put that in there purposely, okay? So that sugar definitely has an effect. I mean, I used to hold a lot of water after my sushi meal, but man, I was jacked after that because I'm getting a big insulin spike from that. And that's the key, the insulin spike.
Let's go to Ryan Physique. Is carb cycling effective for contest prep or something you should do more off-season to prevent from blowing up?
I carb cycle people, like, when I'm dieting them, meaning, and I don't really, I'm either all or none. I usually give them either, carbs or no carbs on 1 day or 2 days they may do carbs, 1 day they may do no carbs. And I do that really just to kind of shock their body a little bit, I'm not of the type, or I guess my technique is not that I'm going to give them like 4 different days. One's at 300 carbs, one's 200, one's 100, and then down to nothing. I don't think that's necessary. I think sometimes when you make too many changes like that and fluctuations, it's hard to keep track of what's working and what's not, because there's too much. I don't like too many variables, because then it's hard for me to control those variables. If I have 2 diets that I'm fluctuating back and forth, I can just alter them. So if let's say I give them 3 days of carbs where they're eating 150 grams of carbs, with their protein, and then there's another day where they're eating no carbs, essentially very low, under 50 grams of carbs, and they're eating, high protein, moderate fat. And they're not losing weight. Well, I can cut, instead of doing 3 days of carbs, I can do 2 days of carbs, 1 day of no carbs, and then all of a sudden they start losing weight again. I know the variables that are so I know it's working. I know I'm just changing the days. They need, maybe they had too many carbs. So it's fine to have multiple different carb days, but like I said, it's hard to keep track of what's working and not working. So my approach to coaching is to keep the variables minimal, so that you don't really have to be worried about 16 different variables and keeping track of what's working and not working. The end result is all that matters, and how you get there is fine. If you want to make your diet super complicated, as long as it works, that's fine. There's no right and no wrong, as long as you're getting in shape. I just find that I would rather control the variables and have less options. Off season, I keep their carbs consistent every day except for the cheat meal. And the reason I do that is because if they're not gaining, then I add more every day. If they're getting fat, I cut back their carbs, or raise their cardio a little bit, and that's easy enough too. Once you start adding in 4 days of different diets, once again you get to that point where, well, which one's working? Is it the first 2 days or the last 2 days, or which one's screwing things up? The high day or the low day? And once again, too many variables.
Let's go to Sahil Upal, SB Boss. Tips to decrease blood urea levels.
Blood urea nitrogen, or BUN, which is one of the variables you test on blood work for kidney function, is really not a very accurate assessment of kidney function, because it's very variable according to hydration levels. And if you guys notice, I know when I get up overnight, I pee my brains out all night. I wake up really dehydrated in the morning. And when do they want you to come for blood work? They want you to come first thing in the morning on an empty stomach, fasted, right? So most people go there completely dehydrated, and then they give blood, and then the BUN levels come back high. And that's just because they're dehydrated. Now, your creatinine has nothing to do with your hydration levels. So if your BUN's coming up high and creatinine is coming back high, then we have maybe a problem, okay? So creatinine's a better assessment of kidney health. If that's super high, you got a problem. Now, what I tell people, first of all, I ask people is, are you on creatine? Because creatine supplementation can raise creatinine right off the bat. If that's the case, I tell them, get off of that, get retested. Also, what I try to do is, if they're chronically coming back every time they're doing blood work, even after retesting with high creatinine, I tell them to go for a cystatin C test. That's a special test that the doctor has to check off in the blood work. And cystatin C will definitively tell you whether you have kidney dysfunction. If that comes back high, then something's wrong. Your kidneys are not working properly. It's more accurate than creatinine, which does have some variability. If you have a lot of muscle mass in your body and you're breaking down a ton of tissue, sometimes that can alter creatinine levels as well. So if you want to get a really good assessment of if your kidneys are having problems, aside from them sticking a needle in you and biopsying your kidneys, which no one wants to do, and I don't recommend you do it, get your cystatin C levels checked.
Time for a couple more questions. Let's go to Alex Williamson. Would it be more beneficial to run tren half dose for twice as long, or full dose at regular 8 to 10 weeks?
I don't know what he's defining as a full or half dose. Look, I've been playing around with different dosages with guys over the years, and what I found, no one just does trenbolone alone. So everyone does it with testosterone, usually with masteron, with a couple compounds, especially because it's usually around diet time. If they're doing it off season, they might just do testosterone and trenbolone. But here's the deal: trenbolone side effects are very dose dependent, meaning the ability for it to keep you awake at night, to upset your digestive system, to give you indigestion, to raise your blood pressure. All these things are dose related. And the muscle building effects of it seem to also be very, very, in other words, how can I put this? When you hit a threshold amount of dose for trenbolone, and I'll tell you what that is in a minute, you grow, okay? Raising it up higher and higher usually just results in more side effects, and rather than more muscle growth. And that's just been my, anecdotal and empirical, observations. So if you're taking 50 milligrams of trenbolone acetate every other day, that seems to do everything you want it to do, and you don't really get that many side effects from it. You'll still get some of the tren side effects, a little aggression. You're definitely going to get, maybe a little irritable, having troubles falling asleep, but not terrible. When you go to 100 milligrams every other day, or 100 every day like some people do, you get a lot of side effects. Your blood pressure really goes high. You really have trouble sleeping. You get really irritable, okay? Then what happens is also your prolactin levels go up when you take too much of it. Then you can't get an erection or keep an erection. So I find that, and I've lowered the dosages on the guys that I work with now. I only give 50 milligrams every other day. It works fine. They get all the benefits of trenbolone and a lot less of the side effects.
Time for one more question. Let's go to B120. Top 4 exercises to build a huge, thick back, especially the upper back.
Obviously, I would say, bent over barbell rows are probably number one. Although I've seen a lot of guys using too much weight, and because some people are just really strong. And so, Akeem Williams comes to mind. The guy was able to row 500 pounds, but his back didn't look like he was rowing 500 pounds. So, then it's not really doing the job that he wanted to do. So he had to lighten up the weight and really work on squeezing those muscles of his back. And that's probably because he had really big arms and strong arms. I also recommend using like VersaGrip or a strap. I actually have some Jumbo Palumbo like VersaGrips I sell on my DavePalumbo.com website with the little Hulk on there. You guys probably, a lot of guys have them because I sell a ton of them, but they're really good. Always use some kind of like a VersaGrip or strap, because you don't want to be pulling from your forearms. You don't want that to be your weak link. You want to be able to pull from the back. So if you have a strap or something, or a gripper that holds on, you can really pull from your back. And you got to really feel it. So I would say bent rows are the best exercise, assuming you're using weight that you can handle with good form, okay? Having said that, I also really like one-arm rows. And I like that because it's one of the only exercises you can pull back beyond, because if you're using a bar, the bar stops at your body. The dumbbell, you can pull back further, which really I feel like activates the lower lat a lot more. So when I lean over, I'll usually lean over a dumbbell rack and I'll pull back this way, and I can really get far back. And once again, you'll feel it in that lower lat. It's the only thing that really hits that lower lat. And you see a lot of guys with weak lower lats. If you want it, when I think lower lats, I think Flex Wheelers. Those he had really feathered lower lats. Kai Green, really good lower back development. Dorian Yates, Ronnie. If you want that thickness down low, which looks super impressive on stage, you got a one-arm dumbbell row. And a lot of people don't like to do it because it hurts. There's a lot of stabilization. You got to do each arm separately. It takes longer. I didn't do a lot of sets of them. I would do 2 sets, like in the middle of my workout, heavy and heaviest. That's it. But I really, really gave 100% to those. Actually, toward the end of my career, I was only doing 1 set. I would go right to the 150, or whatever the heaviest dumbbell in the gym was. If I was at Weinberg's, it was like the 180s. I think at the time, I would just do the 180 row, and I got a really good workout out of that. I like pull downs too, because I was at a point. I got to a point where my body weight was so high that I couldn't really do pull-ups anymore. So I found that pull downs work, but you have to once again use really strict form, or you're kind of just jerking the weight and you're not really working the back properly. So for back, form is really important. And I really do like machines for back, but I like to use them at the end of the workout more for just isolating certain muscle groups. So like if I'm grabbing maybe one of the Dorian Yates row, for instance, from the hammer strength, where you have the pad against you and you can do an underhanded grip. And the great thing is you can squeeze, and because the pad is is pushing into the thing, you can really pull those rhomboids in your upper, lower, middle back together, and that's going to really be impressive on stage. A lot of people don't realize also your traps really drop very far down the middle of your back. So when he's asking about upper back, that's a lot of trap in there too. And so you're working traps when you're doing high, rows and stuff like that. But you got to go light enough so you can feel those muscles work. Because if you don't, you're going to cheat with your rear delts. There's a lot of ways you can cheat doing those movements because you get too heavy, because you get too consumed with lifting enough weight, and you don't really get a good workout or a good targeted workout on the muscle you're trying to activate.
That's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave, only episode of Iron Rage. Dave Palumbo and Lee Priest preview this upcoming weekend's New York Pro and a couple of guests we have lined up for later today. Hopefully all goes well, and we'll be rolling those out as well tomorrow and Friday. For Dave Palumbo and Tyler Shore, I'm Sadiq Baruki. We'll see you next time.